Hey guys, Pete here. Today HBO released what they titled the Watchmen official trailer, so I feel compelled to break that down. It was somewhat unexpected since we just had the featurette earlier in the week, but more Watchmen is good Watchmen at this point as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of stuff we've already laid eyes on in previous trailers, but there's a ton of new stuff with a lot of mystery along with some explanation of what's going on. Sort of, anyway. I think each new bit of news we pick up interesting details more than we get any actual answers about the story that they're trying to tell. I'll touch on this as we go, so let's jump in and break down what's new in this official Watchmen trailer. So things start out with Agent Laurie Blake, who we know is playing Silk Spectre 2. She's talking to Regina King, who plays Angela Abar. She says, "People who wear masks are driven by trauma. They're obsessed with justice because of some injustice they suffered. Ergo the mask, it hides the pain." Angela responds, "I wear the mask to protect myself." To which she says, "Right. From the pain." This bit of dialogue makes me wonder what the bigger conversation they're having here is about, because on the one hand, this sounds like a description of Rorschach, who is dead, obviously, but who is also an inspiration for the Seventh Kavalry, which we learned is spelled with a K, cavalry with a K, and who we once again see are wreaking havoc for the Tulsa police. We don't know enough about Angela's backstory yet to know if what Laurie is saying applies to her, but it's a pretty good guess. And we don't know how Laurie has gotten to be in the position she's in with the FBI. 30 years have passed since the end of the comic, after all. We do know from Damon Lindelof that this show's going to examine how we as a society feel about heroes, most notably people who wear masks and fight crime. Angela is one of those people. Laurie used to be one of those people, and since she was present when Ozymandias revealed his plan and Rorschach met his end, there's a clear possibility that she knows things that the general public does not. The cops are wearing masks to protect their identities and their families. That's not really confusing. They made that pretty clear. But here's Laurie, a person who was raised amongst masked adventurers, seeming to be against the idea. At the end of the comic, she was still with Dan, Night Owl 2, and they were in hiding more or less, and it seemed like they were probably going to continue to fight crime. Somehow in between then and now, she became an FBI agent, like I said, who knows for sure what happened when nuclear war was averted in the original comic. As far as we know, people in the Watchmen universe believe that the US was attacked by aliens, which was what Ozymandias' plan was. We suspect that the Seventh Kavalry is inspired to wear Rorschach masks because they read his journal. We know from interviews from Damon Lindelof that they're also white supremacists. So there's this weird dynamic where they probably know the truth about the attack on New York City, whereas the general public probably doesn't, but they're also bad people. The featurette didn't have much Chief Judd Crawford in it, really. It focused more on Ozymandias, and this trailer flips the other way, showing him interacting with several of the characters. Angela tells him in his office about another cavalry attack and that she has a guy in her trunk. He tells her to put him in the pod, which he's referring to the Looking Glass interrogation chamber. In there, we hear the guy ask for a lawyer, and we hear Looking Glass tell him that they don't have to give him one because he's a terrorist. This is an interesting tidbit because we know this is an alternate reality. We know that they don't have things like the internet and social media. We know that Richard Nixon was president for 5.5 terms or something like that before Robert Redford became president to the present day. So we have like 50 years with two different presidents, and it doesn't sound like that situation has made things all that much better. Later we hear Judd talking directly to Looking Glass, and he said, why would they start this shit up again? And Looking Glass answers, maybe there was something they didn't want found. One of the things that stands out right away when you watch this trailer is this owl mug that Angela's drinking out of in Judd's office. There's some speculation that the chief could be Dan Dryberg, the Night Owl 2. It's one of those things, though, like the initial reaction when we saw Archie in the first Comic-Con trailer was like, yeah, that's him. When you think about it, though, why would he be in Oklahoma? Why would he have the accent? It takes a long time to become a police chief, so he had to be embedded there for a long time and on the police force for a long time to work his way up. This seems to hint at it, and the other thing that kind of does that is we see Regina later wearing the Night Owl looking glasses, but these are like like X-ray specs that are more powerful than anything we know Dan had in the comic book. So it makes you wonder if he is still tinkering and this is his technology, along with Archie being a police vehicle. But there's nothing here that confirms it either way, just the owl makes you think about it some more. We get a shot of the cavalry coming through a hole in the ground. We see them working with explosives. There was a suicide vest looking thing in the previous trailers. So these guys are definitely doing what we hear in the voiceover. They're trying to start a war. We hear the song Running Scared by Roy Orbison, and we get a way better look at Looking Glass inside the cavalry compound. In my featurette video, I mentioned this scene that has this thing falling through the ceiling with blue light in the room. Since there were church pews and video cameras, I wondered if this could be where the Rorschachs were standing in front of the crucifix when they made those videos. In this official trailer, we learn that it is because we get a better look of this whole compound. We hear him say, "What is this?" and a cavalry member responds, "This is the only way to show you the truth." So they have him inside their compound. Later we see him being restrained and beat up by them. We don't know where in the season this falls, how it becomes Looking Glass that ends up there, but it seems like they were reaching out to him in one way or the other. It's this curious shot with Angela in this holographic tree. We see Lady T there. I call her Lady T. It's Trieu, which is, I believe, Chow in Vietnamese, but T is a little bit easier to say. She's a trillionaire, according to the last press release they did about the characters. So we saw this area that with the futuristic looking hallway in the last trailer, and it looks like this stuff might be inside her compound or something related to her. We also see her in these scenes with the couple again. They have a baby. The hourglass we see there. Can't exactly tell who she's interviewing, but it's in that same house. It's not clear what she's all about or what she's doing, why she's reaching out to Angela, but her character seems mysterious in a good way, not a bad way. Some other new clips we get here are this shot of what is probably Black Wall Street burning during the Tulsa race riots in 1921. We know those are going to be in there. There's a car crash on the side of the road with a baby being carried away on foot. See an unidentified kid watching butterflies, which feels like a callback to Ozymandias' dome in Antarctica in the book. We get a glimpse of this guy we've repeatedly seen in front of the clown at the carnival. This is before the incident went down. We see him with his girlfriend or something along those lines. We have this shot of Laurie pulling a gun out at the funeral scene. Like, it looks like that funeral scene. I can't say for sure, but it seems like it's connected to that. There's a better shot of Ozymandias riding the horse, but I don't think it tells us any more about what's happening here. He's just riding by on his horse past the tails of the black freighter flag. See that Angela is running towards this house where we saw this huge gun battle go down with the cavalry. This shot definitely stands out. We have Laurie sitting in a chair. She's probably restrained. It's probably a Seventh Kavalry symbol behind her, which we see a couple of times in this trailer. The outside looks like Dr. Manhattan's mark, which is a hydrogen symbol, and there's something like an eyeball painted inside of it. See Angela using a hammer at home against somebody. She's wearing the same clothes that she had in the Lady T scene. This seems to just be that same sequence where we see her defending herself when the Rorschachs attack. Of course, we see the owl ship crashing again. That's been a repeated image at this point. Angela's in a crashed car. Laurie speaks to her after coming out of that Dr. Manhattan looking thing that we don't really know what it is. She compliments her on a costume, which we can now piece together as a take on a nun's habit. There's a shot that shows that the beads she wears on her belt do in fact have a crucifix attached, which I guess would make them a rosary. And it's been out there that her name was Sister Night, but it wasn't apparent to me that the sister was a reference to the church until the guy who Looking Glass is questioning refers to her as a nun. So I missed that. Maybe everybody else got it, but I definitely did not. So what do you think? Did we learn a lot here? The idea of the potential war between the cops and the 7th Kavalry seems pretty straightforward. That part of the story, I think we do know kind of a lot lot about. We know who Angela is. We know her last name's Abar instead of Abraham, which I got wrong. I think everyone got wrong for a period of time. So there is that. We know who a lot of the characters are, but how everything's connected. I mean, there is so much stuff jam-packed in these different trailers that we've seen. Every time I see a new one, it changes my thinking of what we can expect to see throughout this season. It's not in a bad way. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of stuff going on. Theories are starting to pop up slowly, but we really won't know until we actually see how they weave this story together. How all these different characters, I mean, there's so many different characters, and there's several that we haven't even seen in any of the trailers yet. So we've also got the Louis Gossett Jr. character. We did find out what his name was. In the closed captioning, it says William Reeves as his name, which doesn't strike any connections to the source material necessarily. I'm going to cut it off there. I have some more stuff I want to do in the next couple weeks related to Watchmen, so please give this video a like. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Go back and check some of my other Watchmen videos if you haven't seen them yet. I go into a lot more detail about different things that we've seen. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon.